The 2024 election for President of the United States is shaping up to be historic for so many different reasons. Joe Biden would be the oldest presidential nominee in our country's history, where Donald Trump would actually be the third oldest if he wins the Republican primaries. But if the Republican candidate Vivek Ramaswamy wins the primaries, he would be the youngest Republican nominee, meaning it isn't impossible that we will have the youngest nominee versus the oldest nominee next year. But we're not here to talk about the Republicans today. Today, we'd like to take a closer look at the left side of the political spectrum. Is Biden actually going to run again? If so, what does he have ahead of him? And if not, then who will? When a sitting president is finishing up with their first term, they have the option to run for a second one. If Biden decides not to run for his second term, that would make him only the 8th president to do so. However, Joe Biden released a video in April of 2023 that definitively announced his campaign for re-election.
This is not a time to be complacent. That's why I'm running for re-election.
This will make him the incumbent, or current holder of the office. Now, we know that the non-incumbents party has a primary election to decide who will be the candidate to run against them. But did you know that the incumbent participates in a primary as well? Both parties, whether they have the incumbent or not, hold a primary election to decide who their candidate will be. So, has an incumbent ever lost the primary election? Well, no, but kinda. Primary elections have only existed the way we know them today since the 1970s. Before that, much of the nominating went to delegates that were chosen by the states to vote on their behalf. Democratic elections have not been very prominent for choosing a presidential candidate for most of our country's history. Actually, let us know in the comments if you'd like to know more about the history of how we've handled elections. We came across a lot of very interesting information that we, a group of US history nerds, had never even heard of, so comment and maybe even subscribe while you're down there to let us know if you'd like to see that. All that being said, there have been a few instances where a party chose someone other than the incumbent as their candidate. John Tyler, Millard Fillmore, Andrew Johnson, and Chester Arthur were all sitting presidents that failed to receive their respective party's nomination. And if you're a big history buff, you may notice a pattern here. Each of these presidents were preceded by one who died in office. That's right, none of these presidents were ever elected into office. None of them had left a favorable impression with their parties either. So when election season came around, different candidates were chosen. But has an elected president ever lost his re-election candidacy? Yes, just one. And that one was Franklin Pierce. A Democrat elected in 1852 had become extremely disliked because of the way he handled the very decisive topic of slavery. In 1856, instead of choosing Pierce to be their candidate, the Democratic Party chose someone who had lost the nomination to Pierce the election prior, James Buchanan, as their candidate, who would then go on to win the general election. Now, just for some context, that would be like if the Democrats chose not to go with Biden in the 2024 election, but instead chose Bernie Sanders as their candidate. As of the time of writing this video, there are two other candidates running for the nomination against Joe Biden: Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and Marianne Williamson. Kennedy is the nephew of John F. Kennedy and is an environmental lawyer and writer. He runs saying, "We will end the forever wars, clean up government, increase wealth for all, and tell Americans the truth." Marianne Williamson is an author and humanitarian and believes that people's pain is legitimate and their rage is valid, and that the system is rigged against them. As of August 29, 2023, Biden is currently coming in at 63.8% in the polls, with Kennedy at 13.2% and Williamson around 7%. So, with the likely result of the Democratic primaries being a Biden victory, let's look at what will happen then. Joe Biden would be the oldest person to ever run in a general election at the age of 81. According to a poll by ABC News, 89% of Republicans and 69% of Democrats believe that Biden is too old to be effective for 4 more years. But for a lot of people, it all comes down to one big question: who is most likely to defeat the Republican nominee? And as of right now, the candidate leading by a long shot is former President Donald Trump. If Biden and Trump win their nominations, that would make this only the 7th time a presidential rematch was held. Like with Pierce, if Joe Biden and the rest of the Democrat Party don't like his chances in the general election, we may see Biden step aside, attributing his health. And if this should be the case, the delegates of each state would likely vote for whoever Joe Biden endorses on his way out, someone that the Democrat Party can rally behind and has the best chance at winning the presidency. This is all speculation though, and here at The Political Stalker, we like to deal in facts and present them to you in the least biased way possible. So let's look at something else that will put Joe Biden's presidency and candidacy into perspective. Within Biden's first year as president, his approval ratings dropped from 54 to 41%. His approval ratings hit its lowest point at 37% in July of 2022 and have since stabilized around 40% since. Compare that to Donald Trump's approval rating in his term. Trump started at 46%, dropping to his lowest rating of 37% in his first year, then quickly stabilized at about 40% until his last year in office, where it fluctuated between 40 and 45%. Most recent polls show Biden and Trump as neck and neck in a potential election, each sitting between 40 and 45%. We are still very, very far away from this election, and so many things can happen between now and then. We encourage you to do your research and to do your best to stay in the loop. Politics can often be a distressing topic, but it's important to know who you support and why. Subscribing to The Political Stalker is a great way to do that, so feel free to hit that subscribe button to know when we post our next video. Thank you so much for watching. This has been The Political Stalker, and we'll see you next time.
Tonight, I got a big